Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining TAG's first weekly webinar of the year. We're here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern, to share various resources, add-ins, and other information related to streamlining your Sage 100 contractor or Sage 300 construction and real estate accounting software, project management, and estimating. Today, we have a special guest who will be presenting for us one of Sage's new available add-ins, Liberty Reports. James has been working with this technology for many years, so we're really excited to see and learn a lot more about what's offered through Sage 100 Contractor's new add-in, Liberty Reports. So I'll hand it over to James. This is also being recorded as well as will be published on our YouTube channel for users who aren't familiar with Zoom. All of your chat questions can be sent in through the chat box or through the Q&A, either one. I'll be managing and I'll be able to give those questions over to our presenter, James, so that when he's able to pause in the presentation, we can go ahead and address those. The slide deck will also be available after the presentation as well. So if you have any questions, just get in touch with us afterwards. So with that, I'll hand it over to James to start our presentation.
Well, thank you for that great introduction, and thanks everyone for joining us here today. We just have a few slides to give you an orientation as to what this technology is that you're about to see, and then we'll dive right in and we'll use the technology. And as we said, if you have any questions, just route those to us. And we have a lot of content and much more additional content than even the brief presentation you're going to see here. So if you want to explore, if this is triggers your interest, and you want to explore it further, we'll be able to accommodate you. So today we're going to be talking about Liberty Reports. It's an Excel-based reporting solution, and I'm James Coyle. So I've been in this industry for 35 years, and we're going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about this reporting solution, what it is, what it isn't, and we'll give you a couple basic examples, something that we're going to create from nothing, and also go over reports that come with this solution, just right out of the box. And so with no further ado, let's just keep moving along. So Liberty Reports is an Excel-based add-in that allows for the creation of reports within Excel, from within Excel. So it's different than pushing data in. So it's fully embedded in Excel. And from there, you can either design reports using the tools and the capabilities along with everything else you already know about Excel, or you can, also with the designer capability, you can take something that already exists and add to it. You can also, though, there's a affordable, just a standard license to be able to run the Excel-based reports that are either already designed or that a consultant might design with you. So we feel the advantages that you're going to recognize pretty rapidly for Excel users. It's going to be pretty intuitive. You inherently understand the environment you'll be working with. It's going to save time because you're not pushing data into Excel and then manipulating it to get a desired result and have to continue and repeat that. You're going to be able to produce higher quality reports than you can with a lot of other technology, and you'll be able to understand what it is that you're doing. So you're going to be able to leverage, visual elements or consolidation elements within Excel. So visual elements like charts and graphs, and consolidation elements like pivot tables and things like that. All of those things are accessible to you in Excel. You already know this. But you're really able to leverage this because you're connecting to your Sage 100 contractor data from within Excel. So you don't have to keep going through that cycle of pushing and then doing all that connectivity. So you're going to get a better experience. There are going to be other advantages to this technology over our legacy report designing technology. So that technology was designed, quite a while ago, and specifically for Sage 100 Contractor. or what it was called then, Master Builder. This technology is then newer technology, and it's going to be able to produce kind of results that they're going to go beyond what the legacy report writing is able to do. So if you're familiar with things like reports that are locked that you cannot manipulate or what have you, then you'll be able to go beyond that using technology like this. So as you know, with this report designing in Sage 100 Contractor, I could design a report and it would be available then in my reporting options. I can click modify a report with that, and I could begin to modify, and I would use a screen like this. You probably are familiar with this. And so then I could print that report out. I could print it to a piece of paper. I could visually see it on a screen. We do offer the capability of taking that data, the result, and putting that into Excel. So it would become static information. It's just the information represented on that report could be pushed to Excel. You would just click this option right here, and then the report would then go over to Excel. But that's not what we're talking about in this with this technology. So it's a completely different reporting solution. And I'm going to pre-answer a question that sometimes comes up, and that is, could you just take a report designed here with the reporting technology and convert it to something that is Liberty Reports powered? And no, the technologies aren't compatible that programmatically. I could explain it, but just they're not compatible. But the ability to create what you already are using in Excel once using this technology is considerably easier than it would be with, say, some other kind of technology, something like Crystal Reports. So both yourself or a consultant can be more successful building something more quickly. So you would go that route. And I'm going to be demonstrating that to you. So with Liberty Reports, I'm going to be able to, from Excel, grab the data, connect it into my Excel document wherever I want it to be, and then I can then on an ongoing basis just refresh that data. So to refresh, it's just a click of a button and you get updated information. And you can set workbooks so that they just update automatically when you open them up. You can also share the results of a report with someone who doesn't have Liberty Reports, and I'll talk about that as well. So let's keep going here. Get a little slide animation, and I'm going to then, I'll return to this PowerPoint to recap, but I just am going to now pop out. And the first thing I'm going to show you is here, this is a Liberty Reports launchpad that shows a list of reports that comes with the software. If you got a standard license of this, and we'll explain what the licenses are and what have you, then these reports could be run, and they'll follow a design created by consultants to either, identified by your peer customers as desirable to have in Excel, or examples of locked reports, things like this, or things that customers have wanted to build that they couldn't otherwise build. So that's what these reports are. You can, once these reports are built, you don't have to launch them from here. These are just Excel templates. They could be placed anywhere. As you see here, there's a folder. So if I open this up, here's a list of these templates. I could choose to invoke these reports right here. So when I invoke a template, when I open it, it'll generate a workbook. That's just the way Excel works. And that workbook, though, is going to be Sage 100 Contractor centric and produce a desirable result, which we'll go over. That's one way to get access to it. Or when you create a workbook, just open the workbook and use that. Put it anywhere you would normally put Excel workbooks. But another way that you could use these reports is really the same way that you're used to doing that in Sage 100 Contractor. So here I am in Sage 100 Contractor, and over here in Reports, I could run one of these reports. But if I just click on this, we give you the capacity to add additional content here. So here is a Liberty Reports a financial statement. So let's say I wanted to generate that. What would I do? I'm just going to click it right here, and that's a template. I just put the template. You put your whatever content you want right there. And I'm then asked to identify my Sage 100 Contractor company. and it would ask me to log in. I've already generated a report, so I've already logged in for my session here. But the templates that have been built for you are going to follow this kind of a protocol of having different sheets. And there'll always be an information sheet that will explain to you what that template is, what its purpose is, the workflow to use it, so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here because you could just, I'm going to show you how you can see any of this stuff post-presentation and become familiar with it. But depending on the report, there might be a parameter page, just like you would have with any report, things that I'm going to put in, and then when I refresh, the results are going to be different. So in this case, it's a financial, and I could pick the fiscal year and period. Now I have to match sample data. You would be using data like this, but I'm just going to use this sample data that I know will work with my version of Sage 100 Contractor, and I'll hit refresh. But I want to plant the seed in your mind that if you have reports built for you, or if you build your own reports, you can set the parameters that you want, and then based on how you might change it, the results on your report will change. So when I hit refresh, I'm going to see these worksheets populated with Sage 100 Contractor data. They're already formatted, as you see here, but they're going to get populated with Sage 100 Contractor data, my data, when I hit refresh. This is just a button in Excel. Under Developer Tools, you can just draw a button, and then you can tie it to a macro. That's just part of Excel. You may or may not be aware of that, but there's nothing too mysterious going on right here. So when I hit refresh, it's going to refresh this trial balance, balance sheet, and income statement. So if I come now into here, before when I showed you the sheet, there was no data in here because it hadn't refreshed any data from my Sage 100 Contractor database. But here I have data. So here's a trial balance, a balance sheet, and an income statement. Now you could do something similar in Sage 100 Contractor, getting similar information, but you couldn't lay it out just really any way that you might want, and you couldn't just easily drill into the kind of detail. So let's say you want to know what makes up a number. So Liberty Reports can have other reports, any number of reports in a workbook that are desirable to you, all the way to subledgers. And if I put in the parameters that I want, I could hit refresh just like I did before. And I want to look at this account or that account, but this is drill down enabled so that if I pick something like this, assuming there's data for this period, if I select this, then it populates this report automatically and pulls the data instantly from Sage 100 Contractor. So not only does this report work this way, but you can have other reports work this way, ones you design if you have a designer, or ones that you have designed working with your TAG consultants and professional services. So this is an example of a report that's on your launchpad. You would get this with just even a standard license of the software. So I showed you that when you have the report you want, you could choose just to put them right there. All right, so I'm going to exit out of this and spend some more time out here. But before I go into any other reports that are already on the Launchpad, I'm going to develop a brand new report just to show you how the software basically works. So I'll do that really quickly. I could go into a lot more depth, but this is just a quick overview of the technology, not an in-depth exploration. So I'm just going to go into a blank Excel workbook. So here I am sitting here in Excel, and I'm thinking to myself, I want to get some report. So let's say I want to get a cost report out of the system. Let's just say that's what I wanted. And I'm going to put my cursor here. I'm just imagining myself, here with columns and rows, and the rows are my cost data, and columns are various information from the whatever table I'm interested in, or tables inside of Sage 100 Contractor. So up here under Liberty Reports, this is where I'll be working. And so this tab is placed into Excel when Liberty Reports is installed. You would see this tab. And I have a number of options. One of the first things that you'll do when you use the technology is you're going to create a connection. You're going to manage connections and create one to your database. then you'll use it. So a question that commonly comes up is, can I pull data from more than one Sage 100 contractor folder database? And the answer is yes, you can. And you'll see I have several already. But then once that connection's set up, I can either query data or I can use functions to specifically, put data where I want them. So I could use that to add columns to existing reports or create a dashboard or forms or headers or footers on a report or what have you. But I'm going to just start with a query. And so a query is connecting an area of Excel to dynamic information somewhere. In this case, it would be Sage 100 Contractor. So I'm going to pick my Sage 100 Contractor database, and here's a list of my different folders. And I'm just going to choose this company right there. And now I'm using the designer right now. I'm presented with a list of tables in Sage 100 Contractor. Now, these internal names are what they were originally called when Omware, the original creator of this technology, created them. And over here, we've given you better, more understandable captions, at least for some people. So you could sort the table, the list of tables by either one. But in this case, I want cost information. So that's this table. And we're previewing the data in my database. And if you were using this, it would be data in your database. So I can confirm, yes, that's the table I want. So I then begin to think, what rows might I want? So let's say I want the job, and I want, the description and the date, and maybe the cost code, and the vendor, if it's vendor related, or the employee if not, and maybe hours, cost, and billing amount. So I'm just clicking on those columns, and you see a preview down below. So I'm saying, well, that's kind of thing that I want. But I don't want it for all the dates. Let's say I just want to run it for a range of dates. So there's more to be done. Now, I could also add additional columns to this, because if there was I wanted a job's name on here. That's the transactions name description right there. What if I wanted the job's name? That's not on this table. Now, I could elect to do it the way I'm about to show you, or I could get the report done the way it is right now and then think, oh, I want to add the job name. You would simply just use one of those formulas that I was talking about. But I'm just going to click this icon right up here, and I can add other tables. So in my case, I want to look at the job table. And on the job table, these are all those columns that you're familiar with in Sage 100 Contractor. So I'm just going to choose the job name, and it added it here. It's because the software knows how the tables are related to each other. So, and it's previewing all the values. So I'm going to take this job name and put it right over there. I just clicked it and moved it over. And I could add other columns, but I'm doing a quick example. So I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to add a condition. And the condition is that the date out there in my Sage 100 Contractor database, I only want the data returned if the date is greater than, so date is, here are my operators. I want it to be greater than or equal to, and I'm going to, when you push data into Excel, the data is static. You pick your range of dates and that's it. But I want this to be dynamic, so I could change the dates anytime I want, and the data will change. I don't have to redesign the report. So I'm going to say the data is going to be in the cell reference. It's going to be right here. And it says that's where it's located. So I just click this little button right here. That's how Excel works with other formulas. And I'm also going to put a value in there. I'm going to say 1/1/2018. Okay, that's data from my database. So it pokes that value into that cell. So I'm evolving my report. And here I'm seeing now a revised list of information that only matches that criteria. But I'm going to add more criteria. I'm going to add a condition that the date is less than or equal to the date in this cell here. And I'll make that, like the end of the year, 12, pardon me. Not 2019, 2018. And again, I'm having a condition evolved right here, and I'm seeing a result, so I can tell if I did something wrong. Because logically, conditions don't, most people are not programmers, so we try to make this intuitive and understandable and give you confirmation that you're doing it right. So I'm going to leave my conditions that way. I'm not going to summarize my data. I want all the data. I might summarize it with a pivot table. I am going to sort my data. So I'm going to say I want the results to be sorted by job first, and then I'm going to add another thing that I want it to be by cost code, and then I want it to be by date. So I can force the data to be in the order that makes sense to the kind of report I want. So I just add my sorting, and then I can name my report. I can call it whatever I want. Just give it a name right there. That'll be the query. And I'm going to hit finish. And now I have a report that's created. And here's my parameters right there. So if I am looking at this data and I say, you know, I just want to focus on March. So I'm going to say this should be 3/1/2018 through 3/31/2018. Now, it didn't immediately refresh. I could make it do that. But you could right click and hit refresh, and it's now pulled the data from Sage, or you can hit this lightning bolt, or as you saw, a lot of the reports we have just a button, you know, make it easy for the person using it. And then once you get the data the way you want it, you know, this is there forever. You can now use it, but I could do more with it. I could select that data, and maybe I want to insert a pivot table because I happen to know what pivot tables are. So I say I want a pivot table, and I'm going to hit OK, you know, put it in a new sheet. And this is just Excel now that I'm showing you, but I could say I want my jobs in the columns, and I want the cost codes in the rows, and I want you know, the cost and the billings, you know, in the middle. And boom, I've built a report from my Sage data that's being refreshed automatically. So I could do the same thing with a chart or a graph. And the beautiful thing about this is you could just click on something, it will show you the detail underneath it. That's just how a pivot table works. So just wanted to show you a quick example that I could develop something, or really how the other reports you're about to see were developed. And now I'm going to talk about a few of these reports, and then I'm going to show you how you can see what any of these reports do. So the first thing I'm going to show you is this work in progress report. This, again, it comes with even a standard license, which is very affordable. I pick my folder here. I would be logging in, although I've already logged in. And now I'm going to have the same thing. So it's similar to that financial. It's got a variety of different tabs. Under the WIP sheet is where the parameters would be. That's all described here on the information sheet. But I could put in my range of dates that make sense for my database. It's going to be easier for you. And I can even identify which jobs, you know, based on the types that I might want in my rows. Now, this data is coming from a lot more tables than my little example I gave you. So, because all of this isn't in just one table inside of Sage, but I'm assembling it here, including formulas. So I can see that there's an amount that's coming from Sage, but there's a formula right here that's adding two columns together, but it's also using the Liberty Reports drill down capability, because depending on the data that I see here, when I'm looking at it, I might say, well, that doesn't make sense, like this cost right there. What's that made up of? It doesn't look right. So if I click on it, it takes me to the cost report and refreshes it. And now I see the detail that makes that up, and I can quickly see if there's something missing. So I hope you're seeing some of the advantages to building reports like this with an Excel. This is really state of the art. You know, it's 2020. This is more current technology, working the way more intuitively, the way people I think tend to want to work. And there are just lots of reports. I just have a couple I want to quickly hit related to that WIP report. If your construction company would be how you deal with cost forecasting. So it's very common that people will solicit information from the field, you know, the status of projects, and this report here will accommodate that, and then that information would feed a WIP report. So I pick my folder here and I refresh the data. Now this is, and it'll explain it all right here. I know I'm moving fast, but we have a limited amount of time. But what your work process, typically people who do forecasting would use something like this, whatever matched your forecasting method, and you would pick a project and you'd refresh and save it. in a folder probably called forecast, and you'd have a subfolder on your system for each project manager maybe. And I can come in here and say, you know, I do want to deal with percent complete, the progress, but some rows I self-perform. I don't want it to be percent complete, or maybe it's cost to complete or cost at completion. So you pick your forecasting method here. But let's say one of these rows you self-perform, like the foundations right here. I don't sub it out, I self-perform it. So this one I'm going to say it's hours to complete. And so that's what I would put here. So you can change it by row, but if I put in a value here, like there's $39,000 of cost, and there's my budget, which makes you think you're on target or whatever. But what if you're only 15% complete? Well, then you got a problem. So getting that information from the field makes all the difference. Lets you know kind of where you are and maybe identify cost overruns before, while you still can do something about it. But anyway, so this is a way of assembling data, and unlike Sage, when our contractor, inside the system, this report can have all the costs on it versus just one type of cost. So again, the ability to assemble information the way you want to work with it and then use it. So just doing a couple of quick examples. I'll do one more example, and then I'm going to show you where you can see all of these reports yourself. So let's see, why don't we do, well, this one's really cool. So many useful reports. So my last example I'm going to show you is this cash flow. And so, well, who doesn't want to get a handle on their cash flow, right? So again, this will describe what it's going to do. But here I've got a visual element, and when I refresh, I'm going to see all my projects, and see here that things are changing, but they got Liberty reports, and things have really started to turn around. Yeah, I'm just making that up. This is just the data in Sage Contractors database. But I'm seeing my projects, and this is my cash in and out. And if I saw detail on something, then I want to see more about it, like the cost right there. Then there are these sub-reports right there. And so if I click this right here, it's going to pass parameters to this report. And when you hit refresh, you're going to see these results. And then I can open these up and see the detail that's underneath it. So these are the kinds of things that you could build or have built, and these are already out there, these exact ones. So hopefully I've given you an idea of what the technology can do. If you go to this website, Event One Software is the creators of Sage's Excel-based technology. If you come here and you go to Products and Liberty Reports, and you come to Sage 100 Contractor right there, you'll see a list of all the reports that are on the launchpad, and you could see a description of what they are. Like there's an aging report, that might be, or a committed cost report. So you click this read more, and it will show you examples. Like as I was demonstrating it to you, you could see there was a parameter page, and you could see that there was like a result. So you get an opportunity to kind of get a feel for what the report is. If you want to get a copy of that exact report, click right here, and you'll get an Excel document that is the same as what I was generating. And that answers a question that comes up, is that if I wanted to take the report I'm using and share it with someone who didn't have Liberty Reports, could I do that? And the answer is yes. In fact, that's how this was done. And you do that inside of Excel. When you're in here inside of a workbook that you want on Liberty Reports, there's a save as values, and it will make a copy of your workbook, but with values. It's disconnected from Sage 100 Contractor, and then you could proceed. So I'm going to pop back to my PowerPoint and just hit a few more slides, and then I'll be done. And hopefully, sorry, I tried to move along as quickly as I could, but still give a good understanding. This is a PowerPoint we provided for you, but this is the steps in creating a financial yourself, things that you would think about on how you would get account placement or how you calculate amounts. So we have a lot of content. Lots of people use this technology. Sage's Excel-based reporting technology, there are over 3,500 companies, over well over 10,000 concurrent uses of this sort of technology being used by Sage users versus on one or another Sage product. So the value proposition is here. This is why so many people acquire this technology. It just makes reporting and using the data so much easier and more useful. And then this is the pricing. Again, you would contact TAG and they can give you a proposal. This is based on concurrent use. So a standard license, that's the price, you pay it, and then there's the Sage Care, you just pay this once. And then a Desire license it costs more, it has the same functionality as a standard, but you can do a lot more with it. You can design your own reports and so on and so forth. So to know more, just interact with your salesperson there at TAG. And these are the steps that people typically follow post-presentations to decide what they want and how they might use the technology, so we can create a proposal for you. If you want a report created for you, you would interact with TAG and then can engage professional services. Sage's professional services, this is the process they follow, and in partnership there with TAG, and there's an email address for those folks. And there are training classes to go so you can learn this if you acquire it and you want to learn how to use it. There's training classes you can sign up for, and there's contact information. And sorry, I went a couple minutes over. My apologies.
No, that's no problem. No, that's great. For anyone who was coming in a little bit late, again, this is being recorded, so we're happy to share the recording. It will also be available on YouTube as well. If you have any questions, please send them in via the Q&A box or the chat box, and we can refer those to James there. If you'd like a more in-depth meeting to go over some of the specifics that you're interested in, definitely please let us know. We're happy to arrange a meeting where we can do a one-on-one and kind of go through your wish list items and how this would be relevant for your company. I can't tell you, James, how many years I've had clients and even people looking at Sage wanting something a little bit more in-depth like this to be able to do their forecasting and their advanced reporting. So highly anticipated add-in. I don't see any questions coming in. So if you'd like more information, feel free to email us or give us a call later on, and we can go into more detail with this add-in. Thanks so much, James. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Have a great week, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.